Hi, I'm Rebecca Ruth, and welcome to Designing with Intention. Today, we are here in my Designing with Intention interview series with Emily. Now, how do you say your last name? Because I feel like I'm going to butcher it.
It's Mikaere. Yep, it's a Maori
Mikaere.
name. My husband's Maori. Yep.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
Mikaere. Yep.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Good. Saturday morning, so we're all home and
Yes,
it's a
because
sunny
you
day.
are
So
in New Zealand.
yeah, 9 o'clock in New Zealand. So we're a day ahead.
Yeah, I love it. So before we dive into some full-on questions, let's just do some quick questions real quick.
Okay.
So do you prefer working for clients and customers, or do you like doing your own design work better?
Probably a mixture of both, but I have to say it's probably easier to work for clients because they give you a brief of like, hey, general scope of what you're, should start with. I find it kind of hard to do, an illustration with a blank page and no brief coming from anyone or anything like that. So I like mixing that in because then, it's just kind of adds to the challenge of it. So I would say easier with the clients, but adding that challenge in probably.
Right.
Without with yourself.
Yeah, the blank page can be a little intimidating. I feel you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
With doing media, do you prefer traditional or digital? And what specific is your favorite?
Yeah, I would say digital because that's more of what I feel natural doing. That undo button is quite nice. There's been times when I do like painting with ink. And there's been times where I'm like, wow, painting is so unforgiving, compared to when you're so used to digital that you're like, oh, I just wish I could have done that. But then that's kind of nice because kind of makes it too easy in a way with digital. If you don't like that line, you can like just undo it and try it again. So, that it probably makes you a bit lazy as far as a designer when you just rely on, undo, try again. But the way the iPad is with Procreate and everything, it's just changed completely, and you can do so much just on the iPad. And frankly, it's a bit easier to like, oh, I have 15 minutes. I'm just gonna do this quick instead of getting the paints out and it's really easy to just do a little bit.
Media there on one device. So speaking of like digital media, so do you like Photoshop, Illustrator, or Procreate? Which one's your favorite?
Ooh. Well, definitely Procreate for if I'm doing some sort of hand-drawn illustration or something. I do have a Wacom tablet on my computer to use in Photoshop, but I find it a little bit tricky to kind of look at the screen and the pen. I'm still new at it. I've only had it for a couple of years. And so for abstract designs, I do like using Photoshop for that, but I like the tablet for hand illustration and stuff like that. So but I do prefer Illustrator over Photoshop if I'm just doing print design work though.
Okay. And then now you do a lot of beautiful font work, so what are your favorite fonts to work with?
I was just posting about this the other day. I think Blooming Sans, it's called Blooming Elegant Sans. There's a script font too, but the Sans one, it's a lot smaller than a lot of other fonts for some reason, but I just love the letter forms. It's very clean and it's not overused a whole much. So, it's kind of like a secret font, not anymore, that I use.
The secret is out.
Yeah, the secret is out. Blackstone is another one that I like. It's hard to find. There's so many free font options now, especially with Adobe fonts, that it's kind of nice to find a font that you feel like isn't overused because, we all kind of grab our free fonts from the same well. So it's good to find one. But Adobe has so many. I just found some new ones the other day that have a lot of glyphs for the, so any script font that has a lot of glyphs are really, fun to use because you can change, the first and the last letter and add a little bit of flair. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when you were a kid, what did you think you wanted to do when you grew up?
Oh, when I was really little, I thought I would be a teacher, mainly because I liked writing names, like the class list names. And it was probably because I just liked writing in cursive, or I liked writing, handwriting. And I would always write everyone's name out, and and then I would call attendance and all this stuff. So, but my brother and I played Legos a lot, and we watched a lot of home shows and stuff. So I kind of designed our own favorite houses and stuff. So being an architect probably was something. But when I got older, I don't know. I definitely thought I would do something creative. Definitely never anything business, accounting related things. Nothing with numbers. Yeah, so.
Sorry, I inhaled something funny.
That's all right.
Oh, the fun of the live video, right?
Yeah.
So now you grew up in Wisconsin. So what was your childhood like growing up in Wisconsin, and how do you think the experiences from childhood, you just were talking about the Legos and stuff, how do you think that helped in influencing you down this journey? What other things did you like to do?
We always did lots of crafts and did lots of stuff with the house. Parents were really into, interior design and fixing out the houses, and music. We always played the, piano and guitar and stuff like that after dinner. So definitely, listened to a lot of music. So the arts were definitely something that was always a part of our house, I think. Yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day. My dad had his own business for a while when I was probably 9 or 10, and he needed a logo. And that was probably the first time, I was we might have had a computer, but we had a typewriter that was a little bit digital. And I remember trying to type things up and make, a little logo or a little business card. So
wow, you started so early.
Yeah, but I never thought about that actually for, 10 years ago. I might have been I did do that, didn't I? So it's funny how things kind of work out like that.
Yeah, totally. So then where did you end up going to college, and how did you kind of decide on your major going into school?
Yeah, I, was kind of one of those things where I was oh, what am I going to study? Kind of thought about definitely doing something creative. It wasn't anyone was really pushing people to be fine artists, really, or anything. They don't really talk about that in high school. Maybe they do now, but advertising, and I knew graphic design was something I was interested in and wanted. But it was still so early on. I didn't know any other graphic designers. Now it seems the field has kind of blown up. But I went to University of Wisconsin Whitewater and majored in, or I have a Bachelor of Arts with an emphasis in graphic design and a minor in advertising. So it was an art degree with graphic design courses was the emphasis. So it was a very well-rounded, fun degree. I've always loved that. I love what I do, and it just doesn't seem like work because, I had classes sculptural art where my roommates were going to accounting. So I always found that fun.
Yeah. I mean, compared to accounting, I
yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, I hate that. That's the second time I mentioned it. But accounting is important.
There's those accountants out there that love it.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So then, were there any particular teachers that left a lasting impact on your career path, do you think?
Yeah, we had one of the very first graphic design classes I took was by a professor named Dan Kim from Whitewater, and he was really tough. We would have some sort of assignment like a movie poster or something, and we always had group critiques together as the class, which is also really important. You know, they'd put our work up and everyone would have to discuss it. And he was not, pleasant sometimes. It was definitely tough love. But it really, that's how it is in the real world. It's not like your clients are trying to make you feel good necessarily when things aren't, going well. But yeah, so that was, he set the bar high basically. So I think that's really important to kind of, challenge yourself and make sure you look at things and critique them and learn to do that on your own when you're working alone, to have a look, step back and say, okay, how can I make this better now? So yeah, loved his classes.
Yeah. And then I know you mentioned about too, like that graphic design wasn't well known, or people in graphic design. But do you think also even still now, it's maybe because you're in it that you are more aware of who is out there? Like, I don't know if you ask someone randomly if they can name a bunch of graphic designers.
Maybe it was well known, but I would say in southern Wisconsin, definitely there wasn't a plethora of design, courses to choose from. But yeah, it could be. It does feel like as the internet kind of has evolved, though. I mean, I hate to say it, but we weren't even learning like the internet. We just got email when we got to, my last year of high school. So yeah, it definitely has blossomed and, become such an amazing kind of career choice, in the end. So yeah.
And then, so having like had a wide array of assignments, like, did you have favorite classes or projects or any kind of like defining moments in school that helped kind of direct you in your path for after school?
Yeah, definitely the print-based classes. We had projects like everyone else does probably, where you're designing annual reports. I don't even know if people even print annual reports anymore, probably some corporate companies. Logo design, and all print-based flyers. I just loved those. I just loved those kind of projects. But it's not what I was doing. I had other side internships and things. So I loved the school projects that kind of like gave you a glimpse of what you could do one day. But, it was, a goal to kind of get to those projects, which I'm doing now. So that's exciting. Successful, I guess.
You did a good job, right? And so tell us then about a little bit about your early career once after leaving school.
Yeah, I started before I graduated. I had an internship at a place called Cygnus Business Media, and they owned probably 20 or 30 different trade business magazines. So, everything from Trucker Weekly to some Firehouse magazines, just trade-based magazines. But I worked in the advertising department and, was designing all of the classified ads at the back that were, not the most glamorous type of work, but it's a good base to set you up with things like that, because you get all sorts of information that the client will give you. Say, okay, you have to fit all of this and, this amount of space. So really, it's great training to figure out, how to make that readable and, with different emphasis on headlines and, so sometimes you have to do those types of jobs right out of school. So I did that for a while. And then we traveled abroad a little bit. And after we came back to the States, we, it was probably 2005 or something. And it was difficult to find a design job. It just seemed like maybe it was the economy at the time. And I applied for a lot of jobs and got turned down for a lot of jobs, even thought about going to grad school, and that didn't work out. And I did do some freelancing at that time, working from home for someone that had a small marketing company, and got some more experience doing that. But after that, I kind of took a break from design, unfortunately, and I just had to have a regular retail job, I think, for a while. I probably should have persevered a bit harder, but you know how life is. It just kind of happens, and I ended up getting stuck into retail for a couple of years.
I mean, sometimes you just have to take the opportunities that present
Yeah.
themselves to you. Like, not
Yeah.
always does it seem like exactly what you're looking for, but you can learn a
Yeah.
lot of things in
Yeah.
something
Yeah, for
different.
sure.
Like what were some of the things that you learned from retail that you kind of could apply to your work now, or be, you know, as
Yeah.
a designer now?
Yeah, definitely managerial experience. I am not a manager at the moment. I don't have any other employees, but in the future, that could be something that would come my way. But I was a manager for the logistics team at Old Navy and then also customer service, I think, for several years. And it was hard work, you know, managing a team of all different ages, kids, you know, that were 16, 17 working in the store up to employees that were 20 years older than I was, and having to manage their speed, having to convince them to work faster and to, you know, work harder, and but also, you know, yeah, and dealing with difficult customers. Well, that's a good one. You know, there's always some sort of upset customer wanting to return something, and having to be able to take on confrontation like that, and to be able to deal with it and in a pleasant way definitely relates to, you know, a client that might come in and things aren't going, you know, very smoothly. That was definitely something I could pull from.
Mm-hmm. And then, so how did you then find your way back into doing design work again?
Yeah, so I was pregnant with our oldest son, and we decided to make the move to New Zealand. My husband's a Kiwi. So this was in 2008 or 7, I guess. No, 8, 2008. And we moved, and I was 7 months pregnant when we got here, and had the baby, and was a new mom in a new country. And I was kind of like, yay, I don't need to go back to retail now. It was kind of like, you know, it was like one of those life things where you get stuck. And then this kind of change, just like, all right, now this is my chance to like go back to what I, you know, should be doing or really wanted to be doing. So my son was probably 7 or 8 months old, and I decided I wanted to start my own business so I could do it from home. And when he slept at nap time and at night and everything. And there was an opportunity in New Zealand to do something similar to what Tiny Prints was, or even Minted was, where it was birth announcements and personalized stationery that you could do. There wasn't really anything here like that. So I started Inkblot in 2009 and was a custom personalized photo card. So we did a lot of photo thank you cards, a lot of birth announcements. It went really well. I went to trade shows, and that was a new experience. And we had to build our own website before there was, you know, any sort of Squarespace based, you know, website like that. We were doing open source and had to buy books to figure out how to even do that. And yeah, it was a major learning curve. Luckily, my husband's in business, so was very helpful as far as, you know, setting up a new business. But there was still so many mistakes made. And, you know, at one point, I think I forgot to take into account the envelope pricing. And so I, you know, wasn't charging people for that. And I was like, wait, you know, there's so many things that you don't think about until you do them wrong. And then you're like, okay, I gotta do that. I gotta fix that. But that's just how it goes. So yeah, I got back into it that way. And so I was designing my own cards, and looking back, I, you know, was like, oh, these cards are awful, but they probably, you know, they just get better, and, you know, as they go on. So yeah, I did that for a good 2 years. We had another son, and I kind of had after he was born, I really wanted to study some more again to kind of like refresh my design. Since I hadn't worked with, you know, in a design place for a while. So I took some courses at the local university and ended up deciding that I wanted to do my master's to kind of you know, really dig back into graphics and have that push forward.
So then in doing your master's program, what were some of the like key takeaways that you got from, you know, continuing on in your education?
Yeah, it was really great because my undergrad was only an emphasis in graphic design, and we had a lot of art theory and, you know, design principles, but it wasn't heavily, we didn't have classes on, you know, typography history or graphic design history or anything like that. So it was a really great way to dig into some details around typography and yeah, so any sort of education like that is good. You know, you can, that's kind of was my theory on why to do it. It wasn't like you needed that master's in this field at all. But it was just, I really kind of opened my eyes to, yeah, more about the detailed work of graphic design. Plus, it was a great experience of, you know, having two little kids and writing a thesis. That's always fun to figure out how to do that. So yeah, a lot of procrastination.
Is that like managing your employees at
yes,
Old Navy?
Yeah, exactly. They're not very, I always said that. He went, my middle son came along in the stroller and came to all of my meetings. Luckily, it wasn't a master's program where it was multiple people. It was a one-on-one with two different professors where we were able to meet on a weekly basis. And I had to write a thesis and then have a gallery show that supported the thesis at the end of it. So it worked really well as far as being flexible, where I could bring them in and we could, you know, do it like that. So yeah, and they've just been tagging along ever since.
Yeah. Oh, so that's the great thing of, you know, working from home.
Yeah, exactly. But then I actually, but after I finished that, I ended up taking a job at Anna Stretton in a town nearby and went to work full time for about maybe 2 years probably about 2 years. And I worked as a graphic designer for a fashion designer who also had a Women in Business magazine. So it was kind of a dual role where I laid out the magazine and we did lots of different work for the fashion side as well, bags in the stores, signage, Fashion Week stuff. So it was a really cool role. So I did that for a while, but then I went on maternity leave with our third child. So then and we moved towns. So then I kind of did a little bit of work from home after that, but kind of slowed down a bit after that.
So were you doing freelance, or were you doing more of like your own thing? Like when did you get into Minted too? Yeah,
so I still have that inkblot business, but after I worked full time, I was like, something's got to give. I had 2.5 kids, I suppose, at that point. I had the third yet, and I took inkblot, kind of just stopped for a while, and I did some freelancing for Anna Stretton as I left, or after I went on maternity leave. But yeah, long story short, that carried on, did some freelancing for a little while, but then we moved back to Chicago in 2017 for a role for my husband, plus my family is there. And I did continue doing some freelance work, but obviously it was a lot less because it was difficult to reach clients. My everything was based around me living in New Zealand, so it was difficult to gain new clients while I was in Chicago. Either that or just confused a lot of people because everything says I live in, So I kind of found Minted again as, anytime, just a side tip, anytime you're moving countries, cities, towns, anything, just digging into something new, whether it's a new side business or, for example, Minted with new creative outlet, or, a new education, doing some extra study. As far as moving and kind of getting into, getting out of your head and into a new town and everything. So I started doing some Minted competitions just to kind of, yeah, challenge the creative bones a little bit, and just a little bit different. And I had some early success, which was very cool and kind of got me hooked a little bit. So yeah, I haven't had like any overwhelming success through vintage, but it's been really fun. Like, it's just a fun thing to do for me.
Yeah, and the community is great too.
Yeah.
I think it helps
Yeah.
push you to try different things and
Yeah, for
get
sure.
feedback, especially like working, on your own. It's
Yeah.
harder to get that, critique group or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it can come from the client, but that's often a different type of um, critiquing, so it's really good to have other design people in all sorts of different fields that can, look at something and kind of, make it better. And yeah. And plus, when you work from home, it can be really isolating. So it's great to have other, friends through the internet and, that you can chat to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just me in the podcasts all day listening to them.
Right. And then, so how many clients do you typically work with at a time?
Well, after
Or on a regular basis?
Yeah, my main client is still Anna Strutchen. So I still keep her as a client. And she's brought me quite a few different clients as well. So that has been really good. Yeah, word of mouth and doing that. I do some advertising through Google, and we've gotten different clients that will come in. But a lot of them have, word of mouth has been really good. But I probably have maybe 4 or 5 different projects, I'd say, going on at the same time usually. You know how it goes. Sometimes there's 100 things to do, and then sometimes there's, one thing to do. So It never seems to be an even thing with freelancing, which can be challenging. So, but yeah, there's always something going on. And then Minted kind of fits in there if I have extra time. Like, I would love to submit to all sorts of different challenges. And it's not just Minted, there's like Spoonflower, and there's so many great competitions out there, and, crowdsourcing type things, but they really, you do have to get that work that you get paid for definitely before that kind of stuff comes into play. For me, at least, that's how it, I feel.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills.
So then, like with having built up, like with working for Anna and other clients for like years, like, let's talk a little bit about the importance of like building those connections and like keeping customers happy. Like, what kind of things would you recommend to other, designers and artists for that like level of customer service kind of?
Yeah, no, I think that's, so important. I think that you've got to be easy to work with, but still delivering, a high standard, because it really is just like going to a shop and wanting to have a great, experience, or a restaurant. The client is coming to you and most times has no design experience, and they don't know what a logo type is, or they don't know what, you're trying to tell them about a mood board. These things are not words that they think about all the time. So you do have to remember and get out of the design bubble that your client, finds it, maybe really stressful and expensive. They're, giving you money for something that they might not have a huge budget for. And so making it super easy, communicating very efficiently, nothing can be worse than like waiting too long to hear back, or just checking in. Sometimes if I haven't gotten to them as quick as I would like, I can just send a really quick email, say, got this coming to you. You can expect it, maybe in a day or two. And that kind of keeps me on track as well, giving my own deadlines to myself as far as in setting their expectations of, how things should work. Yeah, I mean, you just need to be friendly and lead them through the process, basically. Yeah,
that's good advice. And then, so what kind of projects are you working on at the moment?
Oh, all sorts of. I'm working on a company's we just finished the logo and did all of their color palette and brand work. And now we're working on the website. And it's in a new platform, kind of updating their previous website. And it's in the Weebly platform. So that's been a new experience because it wasn't a platform I had used before. So, there's always something to learn. The client will come to you and you kind of have to figure these things out. So, a little bit of a Google, a little bit of a look through the forums, and before you know it, you can just put that under your belt. Like, that's a platform that you've worked in before. But luckily, things that, are quite similar to some of the other web designing platforms. But it's been fun to kind of do that. I find web work like that. I'm not a coder by any means, but doing some web design work, it's just fun to mix it up sometimes and to do different work, basically. So I'm doing some of that and working on some store signage. I just wrapped up a couple new logos, and we're working on some illustrations for some things. So yeah, lots of different stuff, but yeah, not enough hours in the day, basically. But
no, yeah, it's hard to fit everything, but that's a good assortment of things, definitely.
Yeah.
And then now, with having moved like across the world, like across the planet virtually, like multiple times, and you still maintained your business, like, what are some notable differences in working, whether you're in the U.S. or in New Zealand?
New Zealand seems like it's easier in a way to have a small business because everything seems so, it's just smaller. It's just a smaller kind of, place. So when you don't feel like overwhelmed that you wouldn't be able to make a mark anywhere. I definitely felt that in Chicago, that it was like, there's so many, so much competition and so much other things, or difficult to kind of get into communities. But New Zealand, I've been really lucky here where there's a lot of small business owners. So I joined, because we're in this is probably like my 4th or 5th town in New Zealand that we've even lived in. So I joined a women in business group in Papamoa where we live now. And that's been really great because I really just joined to make some new friends and to kind of, find some people with common interests and stuff. But those, I don't know what your original question was, but my point is those types of things have been really great to kind of get you into the community. And I've gotten some work through them when my goal wasn't really to network per se. It was just to kind of make some friends. And I've gotten some new jobs just through that. So putting yourself out there. Graphic design, if you're going to own your own business, you do have to kind of get out there and meet actual people, I would say. That has been, or foster the relationships you already have, or, different word of mouth type things. I personally, haven't gotten that many new clients that have found me via Instagram or, just a web Google search. I've had a few, but those are more challenging to convert into actual jobs. Whereas I'll have people come in and then there's, they'll ask for things, but they often want a price right away. And I've had more success kind of building relationships and then be like, oh, actually I have a design job for you, and that's worked really well. And I've kind of focused on that a bit more lately rather than worrying about if my Instagram feed is up to date or whether or not I have, brand new clients kind of knocking down my door, I guess. But, plus it takes the pressure off of social media. It's so hard, even though we're using Instagram right now, it's just really hard. And it's hard to keep up to date and to feel like you're doing enough.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Happens. Yeah. Oh, the question was like what are like some of the differences, do you think, between working in the U.S. and I know like it's being like the small fish in a big pond kind of thing, whereas like you know.
Yeah, the design, I don't know if there's too many differences in the design world per se, but yeah, just the smaller community has been really nice. Um, but yeah, it kind of does go to show you though, even though I have moved quite a bit back and forth, and with COVID now, I think more people understand, you can work from home and still have these, relationships from all over the world and to do that thing. But yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't probably had enough experience in the States in order to make a real accurate thing to say how much different it is. But yeah, I've just enjoyed the kind of smaller communities here where I can get to know other, people in small business, basically.
Yeah, yeah. When we had talked before, you had kind of said like the feeling is kind of like you can do anything as long as you try in New
Yeah,
Zealand
yeah,
because there's such a smaller amount of
yeah.
people.
It does
And it's
feel like
not
there's
as like
room.
oversaturated in a lot of
Yeah,
different areas. So I kind of loved that.
yeah.
But then it also, like I know a lot of other creatives oftentimes get kind of stuck in their head with like kind of mindset issues, like
Hmm.
I'm not good enough, these people out there are so much better or whatever. Like there's this
Yeah.
constant comparison issue. Do you ever feel like
Oh,
you
yes.
know, like
Like
you've had
every
such a
day.
good diverse career, but
No.
and like done so many things, but do you struggle with like mindset
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, for sure. I mean, just ask my husband. I'm always thinking, like, that there isn't room. And I think that's the detriment of Instagram in a way. And I'll even talk to like my kids about it but then it's hard to take my own advice that you do feel like comparing, or you do feel like everything's so oversaturated. But you have to remember that there is room for everyone. And I think the more we support each other in the community and not compete with each other, I've tried to practice that, like with looking at other people's Instagram posts instead of looking at them and thinking, oh, I could have done that, or why didn't I do that, or something. I'm trying to comment on their post and say, wow, this is really great. This is awesome. I love this. And it kind of turns it from feeling like jealous in a way to kind of feeling like, oh, this is someone else that's doing, this great thing. But yeah, it is a struggle, and I don't have an answer for it really. I think it's just kind of working on it, just like exercising anything else. It's like exercising those bones where you feel like, I think you just have to be aware that everyone feels like that. So we just need to get rid of that. And yeah, the more we lift each other up, probably, instead of
Right.
compete. Yeah. But it is definitely more like, even when I was starting Inkblot with the birth announcements, there wasn't a lot of competition. And then later on, after my kids were a bit older and I was ready to kind of get back into it, it's like, oh, well, since, 10 years later, there is more competition. So it has even gotten a little bit more saturated, even in New Zealand, with people with small business. So yeah, it's a busy world out there. But like I said, just fostering those relationships with people, friends and family. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting client work through who you know. So, that to me is, a great way to kind of build a business.
Yeah. And then now you talked a little bit about like, sometimes having clients that don't have much experience with working with the
Mm-hmm.
designer or have that much of a design eye. Do you ever feel like you have to like kind of steer clients in a different direction? And how do you kind of
Yeah.
navigate that when maybe what they're suggesting is just not going to be
Yeah.
aesthetically great?
Nuts. Yeah. Yeah. It's probably one of the most challenging things, because graphic design really is a balance between serving something to a client, what they're looking for, and then also kind of guiding them in a direction as well. Yeah, sometimes I think it's probably best when clients don't come with an idea already in their head of what they want their logo to look like. But it can be really difficult when they come with an idea already in their head, and then when we try to, make it, out of their head onto paper, and it doesn't really work. You kind of have to explain it in the best way possible. But yeah, it can be a challenge to kind of get there. So I would say the less they're on Pinterest looking at logo designs, probably the better. Because sometimes they'll be like, oh, I want a logo that looks like this. It's like, well, I'm not going to, take their logo and make a logo just like this. So you kind of have to take the idea of what they're showing you and kind of do your own thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have any other like tips in working with clients, like how you kind of structure your process with them and, things like logo development or whatever? Like, what are the kind of the steps in your process?
Yeah, the projects with the most amount of organized steps is probably a branding project when they need a logo or they need a new revamped logo. So I have a set of questions, a questionnaire that I give them that has questions about their brand personality, their demographics, their goals basically as a company, how they're going to market, the product line that they're maybe, learning as much as possible about the background of the company. But yeah, and I definitely use the things I learned when I did my thesis, kind of all about matching up the personality of the brand and matching up the personality of the typography that I will use in the logo and kind of making them congruent. So then, yeah, that's what the basis of my thesis was. And I definitely still use that today as far as kind of making sure that those are all in line. So I try to get as much information from them as possible. And we do a collaborative Pinterest board usually to kind of get an idea of things that they like, not to make the same, but kind of just to see what they gravitate towards. And even in colors and pictures, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Pinterest board of logos they like, but a Pinterest board of just kind of a feeling. So we'll do like a mood board at the beginning of the project that will kind of set up, that will give you the personality of the brand. Then we kind of keep looking back at it throughout the project to make sure that they stay the same, that we're in line and that we're not veering off in some direction halfway through. And some clients, there's a lot of edits, and then other clients, there's not as many. But yeah, and doing a lot of just another tip is really how I present it to the client. I think when the ones that are not, basically, or have a lot of design or visualizing kind of experience, the ability to be able to mock logos onto business cards in a Photoshop scenario, or putting it on a swing tag or a box or something, I think it gives the client a really clear idea of, oh, that's what my logo will look like. And frankly, it makes all the logos you design look so much better when you put it on these things, because even though we might be able to look at a white background and 3 logos and picture, which one is the best, I think once you mock it up like that, that's been, I think they're like, yes, that's great. It looks, it brings it to life. So I've been doing that more. I think that's really good to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And then you talked about putting together like the Pinterest board with the client. Like, do you have tips in the kinds of images? Like, specifically, like, where do you source the images? Do you look just on Pinterest, or do you go to other websites or like, photo sites or whatever? And then
I use
what other questions do you kind of ask them to help just pull out that information?
I do use Pinterest sometimes to make the collaborative one, and then once we're at the point where we have a lot of material, I also use Unsplash a lot, the stock site you can use for that, and just gathering. I remember this one I did for a woman who had a yoga company, and we created the mood board, and there wasn't a lot of type-based things in the mood board at all. It was basically colors and just a feeling of ethereal, like beach themes and sunsets, and basically kind of just gave the brand a personality. And I think that definitely, you would like for that client to be able to refer back to that mood board as well as they continue on and take it, you know, after they're finished with their package that they've purchased and stuff. So that's been, yeah, wanting to keep that going on. But the conversations are based off of that questionnaire, and then taking that knowledge and kind of just learning as much about the company as possible.
Yeah. And then what about, like, what do you think are some positives and negatives of being an independent designer? I think we've touched a little bit on this, but
it is hard to kind of improve or push yourself to the limit sometimes when you work alone. I do some work with a client that also has a brand manager that when we work together, I find that very useful because she's more design minded and is able to give kind of an overview critique and really kind of push it to the next level, because that is a challenge. You know, when there's competition, like in a studio setting, you would have other designers where you would see their design work and stuff, or they might give you critique and feedback, but that is a challenge to be alone and, you know, kind of be able to get the feedback going. When I do things for Minted, I do find that very useful, that the competition level is so high and there's so much talent out there that you really have to kind of critique your work a lot in order to kind of get it to the higher standard. But it is a challenge, though, when you have clients that you're working right, for example, because you do have to work quickly as well. Like these things, a lot of this can go out the window if you have, you know, a set amount of time or a budget that you really need to stick to. So you have to learn to design really fast, but also efficiently and, you know, and at a high standard at the same time. So that can be a challenge. And then, yeah, so there's all sorts of, but then of course it's the actual time challenge of, while the kids are at school and finishing something until, you know, I still, my daughter's home by 2:30 in the afternoon. So sometimes I feel like there's only like 4 or 5 hours basically to get everything done. So that it's a challenge to balance it all, as everyone knows. You know, there's no answer to it, I don't think. But yeah, those are some of the challenges of working at home.
Yeah,
sometimes I think it would be easier to work at a place and then be done with it, you know. But
yeah, which leads me to my next question is, how do you see your career going from here? Do you think you'll just stay as an independent designer? Do you want to grow your business, or do you want to, you know, go back to working somewhere full time? Do you have any vision for that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's in the back of my head, whether or not, because I've never worked in a studio with other designers. I've always worked in places where I'm the only graphic designer. So that kind of does pique my interest a bit, but not at the moment with a family at home. This has worked really well for us to be able to be flexible if the kids are sick or there's some sort of thing that needs, you know, to be done during the day. That has been really beneficial, but challenging, but definitely works at this point. But yeah, I would say I think about this a lot, because there's a lot of directions you could take. Like, you grow a design business into having employees, and that is also of interest to me, because I would like to kind of go into that more teaching type role or mentor type role. But that's just daunting as well, thinking about having an employee or something that you would have to maintain the level of work coming in order to pay for that. So, yeah, that kind of scares me a little bit. but yeah, I would like to continue to grow into some more product-based items, and being able to sell my own greeting cards or my own art prints and things like that. I have done a lot of the groundwork already for that, but I haven't quite gotten over the ledge of finding enough time to kind of to finish the job, because the product-based ones is a lot trickier. There's a lot to consider, the, you know, currying things and printing things and dealing with the customer based on a website, and there's a lot more to take into play. So that the freelance work does seem safer and easier some days, because it's just me and my computer kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely think you should always think about what's next and where the business should go. So lots of ideas. And even, you know, with my master's degree, I actually still have the ability to be able to teach in a university. So I kind of always do a quick Google search sometimes just to see if there's anything out there, because I think that would be amazing to be able to work with students just going into design. But that's still kind of daunting, because what if they know more than you? You know, like, what if you like go to teach these kids and they're so computer savvy about all of the design programs that you feel like, you know, what if they're teaching me? So,
well, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's always good to learn and pick up different things, but I think your experience, that, you know, what you learn in school isn't give you the actual experience of working with clients per se. And there's a lot of other things that you just kind of learn on the job that you aren't really taught in school. So I think I think you still got a leg up there.
But see, there's that creeping in again, where you just don't know if you know, you could do it. But I think what we figured out as we all get older is that actually no one has any idea what they're doing. They're just trying to figure it out every day. So yeah.
And then speaking of like working with students and stuff, like what kind of advice do you have for, you know, going on the path of being an independent designer, or just going into design in general? And I'm going to plug in my phone really quick.
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead and talk.
Yeah, advice. I loved the fact that my degree was really design principle heavy. You know, it wasn't necessarily all of the technical bits of every Adobe program, where we did learn that, but it was those basic design principles, like, you know, hierarchy and emphasis and pattern and balance, and all of those base design principles definitely can lead you anywhere. Once you've got those down, and you can really use those tools to look at your piece and critique it based upon those principles, I think your design work will just get better and better. Because sometimes you can look at design work when you're critiquing other people's work, and you'll be like, you know, there's not enough emphasis on what the message is. You know, the base of graphic design is basically communicating messages. So keeping those concepts in your brain when you're designing a flyer, or even a social media small, you know, square that, you know, everyone is creating these days, it has to work in about 2 seconds. Otherwise someone's going to scroll past. So you have to have the emphasis on the right things. The typography needs to make sense. It needs to, be aligned with the brand personality. So yeah, just practicing and reviewing all of those base design principles is definitely something that I would, a young designer, and just to try, just to keep making things, you know, make things for your friends and family. If you don't have any other clients, if you're trying to do freelance work, don't be, it's a tricky thing, because you don't want to do things for free, but sometimes when there's, you know, nothing else to do when you're first starting out, you do have to take some at a lower price, but then to be really hard on yourself to make sure that you're increasing your price, or that's always a challenge, on making sure that you get your pricing right, but you also need experience. So yeah, taking any design job, even with the like I had to do the classified advertising for years, those projects, even though they're not, you know, some sort of glamorous packaging design or something that you wish you were doing, they are teaching you a lot about communicating messages and making sure things are read clearly, because if that doesn't work, then your design isn't going to work anyway.
Right, right, exactly. That's really great advice. Thank you. Um, we are gonna hop over to Clubhouse in a couple of minutes
Oh,
for
cool.
some Q&A and some more chatting just on kind of
Sounds
the
good.
importance of art and design, because we're running out of the time on the hour that we get on the
Cool.
lives.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for doing this interview with me. It'll be
Yeah.
fun to chat more with you on Clubhouse. So hopefully if you guys can join us over there, we'll see you over there. And otherwise, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.